Hello, this is Dread from Epic Builds, and in today's video topic I will go over Judicator Holy Trail Void Knight, a bizarre mix of flavors combined that not only feels amazing to play, but when invested into can also be a decent T4 Jurla farmer. Before we get into the video, if you've been enjoying the constant flow of Last Epoch content, I'd suggest leaving a like and subscribing to the channel, as that's the best way to support the channel currently. So I'm going to answer the most burning question first. Why am I a Void Knight? Well, two reasons. This build has been in my head for a long time now, and with the recent addition of the Judicator, a unique spear added in patch 8.4, which has cooldown recovery speed for Javelin, which we can stack even more cooldown with Anomaly, reason number one, we're a Void Knight, and we also benefit from the 40% echo chance on our self-casted Javelin. That's the second reason why I'm going Void Knight. This means we have two javelins from our lunges on a 2.5 second cooldown and a self-cast javelin at a 1.8 second cooldown, and that can also echo with a 40% chance. This combined lets us not only speed through monoliths faster than our paladin cousin, it also gives us more single target DPS in the end. The paladin would technically be the tankier option, but losing the cooldown on Anomaly seems like a sin. Of course, we're using a spear, but thanks to Holy Trail's adaptive spell damage per percentage of healing effectiveness scaling node inside of its tree, it means we can combat this loss of adaptive spell damage very easily, and the Judicator is the best in slot weapon for us, as it not only gives us 60 flat spell fire damage, it also gives us plus to Javelin, cooldown recovery speed for Javelin, and a large chunk of healing effectiveness on top. It means that the downside of using a spear to get the extra javelin from using lunge, which you require a spear to do so, it's not as bad of a downside anymore. And of course, getting one with LP is tremendous, as you can get increased damage over time percentage on it, which I did land this time around. I burned about 3 Judicators trying to make this, and I'm kind of angry that it took this many, but we finally landed one. My gear is okay. It could have been better in some places, and it could have been worse in others. I'm not using nowhere near the amount of uniques you actually could be, but I wanted to keep the build as basic as possible without losing T4 Jurla viability, so I trimmed where necessary. If you want to know what uniques I would go for to improve this build even further, I would suggest skipping forward to the gearing section, as I will go over the options in detail for every slot. Today, I'm going to cut the intro short, as we also have to talk about the T4 Jurla kill as well, so let's get into the video, shall we? Alright, here we are in clip with the build. So I have done, I think, like 30 Jurla kills tonight because I was bored and I wanted to see how many exalteds I could get, and I also wanted to find an exalted spear that I could use for this Judicator that I just slammed recently. So this build is okay for Jurla. It's not amazing, it's okay. It's a 2-minute kill, but it's pretty safe. The problem is it takes a little bit of investment, of course. You require a Titan Heart, a Throne of Ambition, and of course the Judicator itself. And with those combined, you should be able to do Jurla just fine, as long as you get better gear, of course. And now, if you have a Ravenous Void, you're in luck, because if you just slam a Ravenous Void on this beauty, you could easily do T4 Jurla much easier than you'll see in this clip. Now we're going to go off. So the first thing off, I do of course, the reversal trick to set up my sigils. And of course, we're going to wait for Jurla to move. So in that moment, if you attack her instantly and then place your javelins down, the problem is she won't be in the way of the javelin, so she won't take the Holy Trail dot. So you need to be aware of when she moves, because when she moves, you lose all your damage. So wait for her to move first and then lay on her. So what you're going to do is you're going to place all your javelins down, do a volatile reversal, and then, portal over. As you can tell, that's pretty respectable damage, considering I'm not running an atrophies, or I'm not like running that good of damage gear. Now, when she comes back over, of course, you can kind of just ignore it. Now, the towers aren't a priority, but they are what I would like. If you can hit them, it's convenient, but they're not a priority. Now, your first priority is to hit Jurla as many times as possible between lunges and javelins and volatile reversals, because you want as many Throne of Ambition stacks as possible so that you can tank the void basketballs, the temporal shots, as they are the death of a lot of characters, and including this one before I set it up properly. So we're just gonna keep hammering on Hereth here. So what happened there was I volatile reversal through the void area thing here for some reason, and I took a bunch of damage because of it. It's a bug. It's weird because like you're not supposed to actually be traveling. You're supposed to be teleporting. So when you're traveling with volatile reversal, you shouldn't actually be dying. But you know, whatever. Don't stand in the void beams. Obviously, this requires a little bit of footwork. This requires a little bit of self. Like what do you call it? Like you need to not press reversal all the time because reversal will get you killed, and the reversal bug still exists. So you don't want to be reversaling when you press D. As you can tell here, we're just gonna dump some damage. I can tank the first attack and the second attack. I cannot tank the third attack confidently unless if I'm like max stacks like Throne of Ambition. As you can tell there, I had 5 and I barely missed it. Barely tanked it. So here, Cold Wave. I cannot tank the Cold Wave, but thankfully, since the build kind of does its damage over time, you have time to dodge these attacks, which is why Holy Trail is superior in this version. So here we're just going to do more. As you can tell, I tanked a whole temporal shot without a Throne of Ambition stack, and we aren't even running Ravenous Void. So yeah, that's nice. And we're a Void Knight too, so that helps too. Our DPS is a little low, like I said, but with like an LP atrophies and some more investment there. If you didn't know that, you can actually run past the end of the Cold Wave. I didn't even know you could do that before until this moment. But yeah, this is whenever she's not doing the void beams is when you want to lay down your like you want to like save your burst, save your lunges, and just hit her as much as possible in this little section. As you can tell, her fucking HP just tanks when that happens. When you actually have time to actually take advantage of your DPS windows, like right now is a DPS window, right? As soon as you set up a DPS window with volatile reversal, it's insane. It's this zone here, this phase obviously is the problem. I'm trying not to abuse any of the Jurla bugs that are current, so that's also as well. I'm gonna like trying to abuse the thing where you instantly teleport and there's no void pool and stuff like that. So I'm trying to not do that. Also, don't reversal as soon as you teleport with D. You'll get catapulted and die. That is a current bug. But yeah, I said. When she's like sitting here in like the middle here, it's very convenient for you. But of course, you do have range javelin, so you're not like always out of DPS. It's just you're kind of forced to wait until now, where she has less. And of course, we have Cole on lunge, so we should be fine. There you go. I portaled as a measure. But yeah, that's pretty much it. The Jurla kill. Like I said, it's not that hard. You just need to make sure you can tank the temporal shot. That's the most important part because that's the part that can't be dodged as easily as all the other attacks. But yeah, and then I went and ended up getting my Jurla kill to like 1 minute 30 after this with some practice. But this was my first kill because, like I said, I like showing you guys my first kill because I can show you all the mistakes I made so that you don't make them. But yeah, with all that being said, let's get into the actual video, shall we? All right, here we are in game with the build. So the video is already getting a little bit long, so we're going to speed things up. So for the skill rotation, you just want to do a reversal trick for your sigils. Of course, you want to keep your anomaly up always, and of course, just throw your javelins down. That's really it. And then, of course, use reversal. Like it's pretty simple. Like damage is pretty okay considering that we're using a fucking spear. Yeah, you could get the damage much higher if you dumped all the tankiness stuff. Like you could easily do more than 1 million on the DP on the dummy if you like swap to an atrophies and like swap to a healing effect of a sidle and like did a bunch of other stuff that I'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, for skills, so for Javelin here, we have a 22 Javelin. We have +2 from Judicator. That's pretty much fine. You could get a +2 on your Relic and then put 2 points into Mighty Delivery. I do like the minus mana cost though. So 1 point travel to Mighty Delivery, 1 point travel to Burning Strength, 5 points in Spirit of the Thigh, 100% more damage is really good. Then of course Holy Trail for the Holy Trail itself, as you can tell there. Then 1 point into Path of Judgment for the adapted spell damage per healing effectiveness. I have about 100%, which is a large amount. Then 4 points to Pilgrimage. This node was actually nerfed recently. It used to be 100, 100, I think, or 80, 80, or something like that. It's still good. Doesn't matter. 1 point travel to go for the legs, 1 point travel to Keen Outlook. I'm not entirely sure if this actually works for the Holy Trail part if you're standing still, because Holy Trail's half lightning damage over time, half fire damage over time, so it's really hard to test, but it doesn't matter. It's not much damage, anyways. Then 1 point to Strategic Patience for the more damage. This is where a lot of our more damage comes from and why we're playing this build. Then 2 points travel to Serrated Javelin, then 3 points into Excellent Balance. The reason why we're doing this is because, as you can tell here, as I can show you once I start ramming on the dummy here, the lunge is a mana whore, and if you do not have the minus mana cost here, lunge will cost mana equal to javelins plus lunge's mana cost, which will drain your mana instantly. So you want to have the minus mana cost on javelin to keep it zero. You could play around with it. You could use minus mana cost rings, but the problem is minus mana cost rings are really hard to come by when you're trying to go for LE damage over time and healing effectiveness. So it's really not really something you should be doing. So minus mana cost is good here. And reversal, stereotypical reversal setup, nothing different here other than the fact we went for movement speed instead of attack speed, because we don't really care about the attack speed much because we're just lunging all the time. I haven't really had a problem where the less attack speed affects me as much because we only attack like, what is it? Like 1.8 seconds and then of course 2.5. So like it doesn't really matter on that. Then, of course, sigils, stereotypical sigil setup, not really anything different here. This is your stereotypical anomaly setup, but I will note one thing important. 3 points in Swift for S is the whole reason why we're playing Void Knight, because this, on top of the cooldown on our Judicator, on top of the cooldown on our helmet, is enough to get our Javelin all the way to 1.8 seconds, which is insane because it starts out with 3 seconds. So we're getting like, I think like, I can't really do that kind of math in my head. It's like 50% more, 50% more javelins just because of that. And that gets even crazier thanks to the Void Knight Echo stuff, right? And then, of course, for lunge here, it's a little different. 1 point travel to Warrior's Renewal, 2 points into Ambuscade, 1 point to Double Strike. You don't have to actually run this node. You could actually ignore this node entirely and just run with a lower cooldown lunge. I'm not entirely sure if it's worth it. I've played around with it. I didn't like the feel. I liked having the extra charge, so when I'm running around the monos, I can save up a charge, but it's personal preference. 2 points travel to Initiate's Onslaught, 3 points into Coal of the Week for the Coal, because it's really strong. 1 point travel to Art of the Spear, requires a spear. 1 point into Deadly Stab, then 1 point into Pillow Assault. This requires you to have a spear, which is really good because of Judicator. Then 3 points into Dawn Charge is really strong when we're constantly lunging everywhere. Then 4 points travel into Juggernaut Dash and 1 point to Unstoppable, so we're invulnerable and we spend a lot of time lunging. So being invulnerable during those times is very strong. And that's pretty much it for the skills. Now for the passives here, 8 points of Fearless, of course, because HP is good. Good. 5 points to Armor Clad. We end up face fucking most bosses, so the DR is good. 5 points to Valiant Charge. This applies to your lunge because it is a movement skill, so that's very strong. Then Paladin here, 8 points to Conviction for the pen because we are not doing void damage. We're doing elemental damage over time with fire and lightning. So we want fire and lightning stuff. This is really strong because it gives us pen for both of our damage types at the same time. 10 points to Devour. We want as much healing effectiveness as possible, and of course, as much HP as possible, so that we can tank Jurla's attacks. Then 7 points to Holy Symbol is just a trifecta of things we want, which is good. Then Void Knight here, 10 points to Abyssal Endurance, another trifecta of things we want. 8 points travel and devouring blade. We don't technically need this; it just helps. Not really much else. The void damage is cool, but it doesn't really help us much at all because we get so much flat anyways. There's no point. It's better just to have the extra smites from our Judicator damage kill to heal us instead. Then 7 out of 8 points for Doom Knight. The armor percentage is nice because we're trying to scale armor so that we can tank Jurla's hits. And of course, HP as well is really strong. 5 points for Renouncement, win as much HP as possible. We're kind of doing a lot of traveling because we don't really care about most of these nodes. 5 points in Echoing Strikes for the Echo chance, of course. 10 points in Time Legion for another 10%. And then another 1 point in Avatar of Regret for another 1 point. So we have 40% overall, which feels really good with Javelin because as you can tell here, let's wait for it. One more, come on. There you go. It does leave an extra holy trail. So like it's nuts. So echoes are really strong for this. It sadly doesn't work with our lunge javelins, but that's like besides the point. Then 10 points in Eternal Form for HP. We want as much HP as possible. Then I opted in for Dread for the movement speed. Totally not because it has my name. No, no, no. It is for the movement speed because the faster we can move through manas, the better. The void damage is nothing for us, but we don't have anything else we want to put points into. Like we could put points in Weapons Master for strength, I guess. Like there's not much else to actually put points into because since we're focusing more on the echo stuff and not the void stuff, we don't really care about all this shit. So it's like, well, might as well go for movement speed, right? Yeah, that's pretty much it for the passives. Now for the gearing. So we're gonna go really in depth with this because there's a lot of things you could do to make this build even more OP than it already is. Idols, healing effectiveness, HP. You want 4 of them: healing effectiveness, HP, healing effectiveness, HP, and of course the 1x1s can be healing effectiveness plus whatever resistance you're lacking at the time. Then Throne of Ambition here. So why are we running this? Because we want to be stacking as much armor as humanly possible when we're trying to kill Jurla. Because already we are at 44% armor just by standing still and doing nothing. And Throne of Ambition gets us up to like 80% if it's fully stacked. Now, we don't stack it as much with this build because of the way it's set up, because we don't hit that often, but we hit enough to the point where we get like 5 to 10 stacks, which is enough. Obviously, the fire percentage increased damage over time. Fire percent increased damage is good for the fire side of our holy trail, but like not important. We're mainly doing it for armor, as that is a lot of armor for one idol. Then for the helmet, you want exalted cooldown recovery speed. Obviously, it's not required, but you obviously want it. For the helm prefix, you would just want vitality, then HP, endurance, and then you want to seal HP. There's no exalted helmets. I mean, there's no legendary helmets you'd probably want for this. Then for the amulet here, you would want a bleeding heart for this slot here. I would suggest a bleeding heart just because it would allow you to face tank things much harder. Having a bleeding heart, we don't really care about the bleeds. It's just I didn't have another LP bleeding heart laying around, but yeah, I would heavily suggest running a bleeding heart, as that will make your Jurla kill even better because you can face tank it. Like I said, I don't need the resistances. It's just I want, I didn't have a bleeding heart around. Titan Heart, you don't actually need that HP on the Titan Heart. I'm more well than enough tanking most of our attacks, so you don't actually need this. Titan Heart's really strong because unlike a Wings of Argentis, it is never down. So we stop to attack, we stop to lunge, we stop to do a bunch of stuff. So having this DR plus the HP is much better than having than not having DR up all the time. Obviously, you have a much better Titan Heart than this. But yeah, having DR up all the time is really strong for Jurla because you don't want to die to the Void Basketball for no reason. Then for rings, this is your perfect ring, except you like obviously endurance, crit avoid, whatever. But yeah, you want exalted healing effectiveness, damage over time. So these are perfect for sealing for the prefixes because you can also get damage over time percentage and stuff like that. You can get throwing mana costs, you can get throwing attack speed, which would make your throwing version not take 6 years to finish. So like there's a lot of things you could do with rings, which is really cool about this build. This ring is just helping me cap my crit avoid. It's not important. You'd rather have 2 of these technically. Belt, you want a little bit of mana regen so that you're not like sucking up your mana constantly. Elemental damage over time, of course. HP. You could obviously get a haste belt. You could get like there's a lot of kind of belts. You get +1 with a thorn slinger because you can get +1 to physical skills, which Javelin is, which would give you an extra point in mighty delivery. Then for gloves, you want an LP atrophies. or a Ravenous Voids, either one. But obviously, LP Atrophy would be insane because you get throwing attack speed, strength for the armor, and of course HP or Crit Avoid. It's just these gloves rolled really terribly, and I did not have a replacement currently because I'll be honest, I've been looking through my stash. I'm actually running out of gear for once. It's kind of funny. I have to do some farming streams. And of course, the boots. You already know what comparative boots I'm running. We don't even have to talk about it. Argent Crest here. So we don't care about the resistances because we're already capping most of it with the rest of our stuff. But the elemental damage over time is insane. This what is it? T6, of course, healing effectiveness, resistance, endurance, crit avoid, the usual. Not crit avoid, you can't get it on that relic. HP would be cool too because we're stacking as much as possible here. You could also, I think, swap a throne for like HP idols. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure if that's a good idea or not. And of course, one last thing, a what is it called? There is a relic that you could be using. Let me find it here. I gotta find it. My stash is so big. Here it is. Grimoire. Grimoire of Necrotic Elixirs. You could run this. I'm not slamming it for this build because there are other builds I could use it for, but you could use a Grimoire because that would help you tank a Jurla shot, and this on top of a Ravenous Void would actually make you almost impervious to most of Jurla's attacks, which would be really cool. But yeah, this is really good. Also, having the Vitality on it on top was really good too because that's 40 extra HP you have on top of whatever else HP you throw on it. So yeah, a Grimoire with LP would be really good for this build. For Titanheart, obviously just as much HP as humanly possible. I haven't slammed this one either because I want it for a different build. I don't want it for this build. But yeah, with all that being said, I think that's pretty much it for the gearing today. Like I said, not that expensive gearing this day. The Jurla kill's a little slower, but like 2 minutes is acceptable for being able to face tank most things. With all that being said, thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful rest of the day wherever you're at, and